Is everybody familiar with the expression, give a man enough rope and he'll hang himself?
Hey YouTube, Jesus Freak with you once again. I want to talk to you guys about slavery.
You just know this is going to be good, don't you?
What I want to do is I want to talk to you guys about how people have misunderstood.
Brace yourself.
What is slavery? I think all of us are familiar with the negative imageries of secular slavery.
Well, I'm certainly not aware of an episode of Happy Days where the Fonz was enslaved by a Christian neighbour. Show me a dictionary where it says biblical slavery and secular slavery. There's just slavery.
We understand that slavery was a very, it's the epitome of exploitation of another human being for our own personal gain.
Do we understand, JF? Do we understand? Because it seems that you don't understand at all.
But what about biblical slavery? Now it's very clear that slavery in the Bible is totally different than slavery that we're familiar with.
Very clear. Totally different. No, I don't think we see that at all. Have some more rope.
Sometimes we are in the position of being the master to someone else.
We? You mean the Christians? The master religion? Zeke Heil, JF. Zeke Heil.
The book of Deuteronomy 15:12-18 teaches that slaves were given the option of remaining slaves if they owed, and they went in slavery, restored what they owed, and if they desired to continue on because of the kind treatment from their masters.
However, you may purchase male or female slaves from among the foreigners who live amongst you. You may also purchase the children of such resident foreigners, including those who have been born in your land. You may treat them as your property, passing them on to your children as a permanent inheritance. Permanent, JF. Leviticus 25:44.
Slaves would say, hey, you know what, this is better than me going out and trying to succeed in struggling, and I'll just stay on with a slave owner and be content. That was an option that was exercised quite frequently.
I bet it was. We're going to need more rope. If his master gave him a wife while he was a slave and they had sons or daughters, then the man will be free in the 7th year, but his wife and children will still belong to the master. Good news, JF. Your debt to me is paid. You're a free man. The bad news is your wife and kids stay with me.
But instead of being whipped and beaten as the cliche,
when a man strikes his male or female slave with a rod so hard that the slave dies under his hand, he shall be punished. If, however, the slave survives for a day or two, he is not to be punished, since the slave is his own property. Exodus 21:20-21.
And final, some may say, well, what about conquering? You go in, you conquer a town, and now they're slaves. Oh, the brutality. Oh, the brutality.
It was done by arrogance, it was done by dogma, it was done by ignorance. When people believe that they have absolute knowledge with no test in reality, this is how they behave. This is what men do when they aspire to the knowledge of gods. In the end, the words were said by Oliver Cromwell. I beseech you in the bowels of Christ, think it possible you may be mistaken.
Sin is one of the reasons of slavery.
No, it's not. It's just a justification for it by monsters.
You have to remember that God is sovereign.
No! You have to question whether this God exists.
And God deemed that nations were wicked and idolatrous.
Hey, surprise atheists, a Christian seems to think that words on a page equal a voice from the sky.
And he would allow them to be conquered. Israel would march in and they would be conquered. They were not conquered merely by the sword and forced into slavery.
Yes, they were, JF. The sword is everything. Without the sword there would be no victory. There would be no conquering. Hey, you lot in the city, come out and be our slaves. You got any swords with you? No? Well, fuck off then.
The leaders would actually, go to the town and say, hey, give up, surrender, and you can be our slaves. And those that understood that they were in defiance of God.
Yes, I understand that I'm in defiance of God.
That wanted to restore themselves to God's graces.
Yes, I want to restore myself to God's good graces.
They would voluntarily allow themselves to go into slavery.
Yes, I volunteer to go into slavery. Could I carry your knife for you?
Because God did not want forced labor.
Well, it's pretty hard to force a corpse to work, isn't it? Yes. Yes, more rope. Lots more. I don't know. How much have you got?
And those that held fast to their own iniquity and said, no, we do not acknowledge the sovereignty of God, God would have them killed.
No, JF, you're losing it. God did not have these people put to death. They were killed by men who believed in the Christian God. You're saying that I, as somebody who rejects Christianity, should be killed. You're telling every atheist on YouTube that they should be killed or they should become the slaves of Christians. For God's sake, think.
So I think when we look at biblical slavery, we see it's very clear. Slavery was a very, it's the epitome of exploitation of another human being. And I think that is very, very telling of God's nature.